On today's show on the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, it is another crossover episode. I did one with Locked On Bucks and Camille Davis. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Orlando Magic and what they should do with their 2 first-round picks. Let's go!
And I am joined by the man of the month, the busiest person in the Locked On Podcast Network for the next 3-4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer after that, because then we have to deal with the drafter math and all that stuff. It is Rafael Barlow of NBA Big Board. Rafael, thank you for taking the time. I know I am lending some of my airtime to you as well, as it's very, very busy for all of us here in the NBA with the finals and the draft shortly thereafter. First, how are you doing? What is life like right now?
It's actually good. I mean, there's 16 days until the draft, so you try to add more time onto it, but it's 16 days, not 3 weeks.
16 days.
So.
It comes quickly, and I always love this. Jeff Weltman, the Magic's president of basketball operations, always says this: if he did the draft tomorrow or did do the draft in 16 days, it's going to be completely different. And it's just like this little window of time is the one chance you get to do it. But it'd be completely different if you do it 24 hours later, 24 hours before, 48 hours later, 2 weeks before. It is a wild, wild thing. And so obviously we're all trying to get a grip on the draft. A lot of us, us team guys, especially us team guys who've been in the playoffs, we're not as worried about the draft as we used to be. But we were talking a little bit before about how the draft is changing a little bit. We saw some players decide to stay in school. One of my favorite prospects, Axel Lendeborg, I thought Magic would have been a very good chance of picking him at 25 or 16, to be honest. Decided to return to Michigan, which only makes him more likely to be picked by the Magic in the very near future. How has the age of parity that we're seeing in this league changed how prospects are approaching this draft, as well as maybe how you're hearing teams are approaching this draft, considering how cheap rookie contracts are?
I think parity is part of it, but I think the biggest influence is NIL. I mean, Axel Lindenberg, I thought he was a first-round pick. Like, I watched him work out a couple times, but before the combine, and I'm just like, there's no way this guy is going back to school. He's a first-round pick. He played well at the combine, and he chose to go back to Michigan. That just shows you how like important or just how influential the NIL is. And then when I think about Yaxel from an Orlando Magic standpoint, it's like, oh yeah, I would have went back to school too. I'll make more money unless he was the 16th pick. But I'm going to make more money at Michigan. I'm going to play 30 minutes a game. If I'm drafted by Orlando, like, where am I going to play? I mean, I just saw Tristan da Silva didn't play a lot. I just saw Jet Howard didn't play a lot. So I think that is probably one of the biggest the biggest impact that you're seeing is I think players are looking at the money they can make in college, looking at their draft range and saying like, no, I'm going to play 30 minutes in school and I'm going to make more money. So I'll just wait. Now, in Yaxel's case, I think he's going to be 24 at the time next year. And I don't know if his stock can be even higher than what it is right now. So he's taking a risk, but if he's got $3 million, I mean, I guess that's kind of worth the risk. But then again, it could be like you're stepping over dollars to get pennies on one standpoint, because the $3 million or whatever he's getting in NIL could be it's nothing compared to what he could get if he's gets a big second contract.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting to see this dynamic, and I think it definitely feels like it adds some intrigue to the draft, because, last year the Magic took Tristan da Silva, and obviously he played a bigger role toward the start of the season when they were dealing with a lot of injuries, gave them a lot of stability. You could kind of feel like, okay, this is a guy who gets it. He played 4 years in college, was a veteran player.
Was good in summer league.
Yeah. And played played well in the NBA. Like, the Magic just got healthy and, they tightened their rotation. They pushed him a little bit further down, but they were comfortable going to him when they needed a spot start, because, Franz missed a game or Paolo missed a game, or, even Kentavious Caldwell-Pope missing a game. They felt comfortable going to him. But I'm seeing a lot, like, as I've looked at this draft from the Magic perspective, and I'm still kind of looking more globally here too, it feels like there's a lot more upperclassmen who, have that experience. I'm thinking of Rasheer Fleming. I'm thinking of Nick Clifford. We'll talk plenty more about Walter Clayton. It feels like there is this, certainly at the top of the draft, still a lot of those, freshman players, high upside guys who haven't, you haven't been able to pick apart all their flaws quite yet. But in this back half of the lottery, kind of just outside the lottery, it feels like there's a lot more of these more senior players who, maybe they've transferred around a little bit. Maybe they've been around the block a little bit, kind of found their niche, but they come to the league a lot more experienced, a lot more seasoned. Is that also part of this trend?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be the story going forward. I mean, it's like if you're not a first round pick, and even going back to Yaxel, I think he was a first round pick. But if you're a college prospect and you're not comfortable with your draft range, you can just go back to school, which is going to lead to classes thinning out like this one. But teams are going to have a lot more options of players that are ready or expected to be ready to contribute. There's just not a lot of freshmen that are betting on themselves outside of the guys that are projected lottery picks. So on one hand, I think it can help teams. You're not like swinging for the fences in a sense on a 19-year-old that you've only evaluated for 30 games. Now you can say, all right, this guy that we drafted, we're comfortable with him because we've seen him play 30 or 60, 90, or even like 4 or 5 years of college basketball. But I think from an evaluation standpoint, a team is like, we love the fact that we've seen this guy play, like I said, 60 games or 90 games over his college career.
Yeah, and I think that, especially for a team like the Magic, that is competitive. We've heard Jeff Weltman say that they want to make moves with a win now lens. It really feels like the Magic are not going to do the thing that they typically do with their draft pick or with their offseason. They're going to put some skin in the game. And this isn't the episode to get into what the Magic can get 16th pick, or whether they can package 16 and 25 to move up, or how they're going to move around this draft. I think most of us expect the Magic to use only one of their 2 picks in this draft. But still kind of sticking globally, the Magic do have a type. I think I ask this question every time I have someone from NBA Big Board on to preview the draft. Let's start with the basics of this then. Who is the most Orlando Magic player in this draft? The most, like, the typical Orlando Magic going for length over everything else.
I'm sorry. I was going to say Nick Clifford, but Cedric Howard.
Yeah.
Cedric Howard, long, 7'2" wingspan at 6'5", shot the ball well, still somewhat mysterious as he only played like 6 games at Washington State, but I thought he was really good at Eastern Washington. I've actually projected him as a first round pick before like the combine blow up, but that's like the first name that comes to mind. Just this massive, long wingspan. But then there's some other guys that, when you think of like bigger guards, like bigger point guards, Yegor, in a sense, because he's a big guard, may not have like the defensive. Yegor Dimon from BYU, that is, doesn't necessarily have like the defense that Orlando has kind of valued in the past, but he is like a big, unselfish playmaker that, even if he's not like a great defender, he's still 6'9", and he still has length. So those 2 guys come to mind.
Yeah, those are the 2 names that I had. Nick Clifford's also kind of on my mind. I want to get more into this after our break here, but Yegor Dimon like screams, I am an Orlando Magic player, like 6'9" point guard. Like the Magic love guys who play unconventionally for their size, but at the same time, he is just not a good shooter. Like he shot the ball so poorly at BYU. His free throw percentage isn't impressive either. And while like, I think there are a lot of Magic fans who would point to Demon as that's the guy the Magic should take if he's there. He's obviously super talented, but the Magic are in this weird place where they're trying to evaluate how to build their team to be more competitive in the playoffs. And I think that means a change in their draft strategy and what they're looking for. I want to get a little bit more into that because the Magic with two first round picks are an interesting team in this first round and in this draft. I want to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. If I can find my thing here, which is somewhere on my list. There it is. NBA fans, you know what time it is. It's not just draft time, it's NBA Finals time, and that means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more. Use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and the combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. No matter what game it is or what the celebration is, food always ties it together. So whether you're celebrating a big finals win or trying to drown out the sorrow of a loss with food, we all do it. It's okay. Imagine being rewarded with free food just because someone went off for 50, even if it was against your team. If you're ever looking at delivery fees and thinking there's got to be a better way, with Dash Pass, you get $0 delivery fees and exclusive perks like this one. How much would you save over a season? Get a jump start on that now. So here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 or more in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, joined once again by Rafael Barlow of NBA Big Board. We're talking about the draft in general. We'll pin down the Magic a little bit more here because the Magic are in this interesting space. They have made the playoffs the last 2 years. They've kind of built organically. I think there's a stat that the Magic have the most or second most players on their roster that they drafted in the league. They've been very, very heavy on drafting their roster and building through the draft. They're not only a team now that has aspirations to get to the second round, to be a home court advantage team, to do all these things in the playoffs. They're also flirting with the first apron and certainly going to be over the tax next year with some of their salary responsibilities. And so draft picks and getting them right are really, really important. And we were talking a little bit before the break about Igor Demon and about how he is the kind of player the Magic would normally go after, but may not fit this vision of a winning team. From your perspective, how should the Magic kind of change how they approach the draft, knowing the aspirations that they have now to be a lot more competitive and to focus on maybe short-term goals over long-term goals?
I think Orlando's just in a weird situation, right? I mean, you look at the guys that they've drafted and recently that haven't been able to get on the floor. So do you want to keep drafting guys that aren't going to be able to crack your rotation? I think Orlando needs some shooting. And I don't know if adding 2 more rookies helps. But then you look at it from the financial standpoint, you need some guys on some cheap contracts. So I think Orlando's just in this weird predicament. They're a good team. They were good this past season despite like the injuries. Like you have to wonder, like, hey, if Orlando were healthy all year long and Banchero doesn't miss all that time, what could have been from this season? And I think Orlando's just a couple of pieces away from being in that range. I mean, you got to look at Philly's getting, I don't know if they're older or they're younger.
Philly's getting Philly.
Philly's got that weird situation. You look at Boston. I mean, they're going to have this battle between they're facing the apron and Jason Tatum being out. You got to imagine Cleveland is going to get too expensive real soon. The Pacers might get too expensive, and Orlando has young pieces. I don't think they're far away, but in this case, and it's probably like a long answer to your question, I think maybe you go against the tradition that they've had of taking like big, long players. Maybe you don't necessarily draft for, or how about this? Maybe you draft for best fit. You draft for the guy that can come in and provide some outside shooting, which, obviously that's what Jet Howard was supposed to do. And they did that with Caleb Houston, even though he wasn't a first round pick. But I think maybe you consolidate and maybe you make a move and you try to find a veteran that can come in and complement your two big dogs and Banchero and Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, shooting is obviously the big thing the Magic need. Finished last in the league in 3-point field goal percentage. They really, like, it was just like a virus. It almost felt like, where just they could not get shots to go down, even if the shot quality was fine. Even when they were healthy, it just had taken over this team, and so many guys had just like career worst seasons from three, including a veteran like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was also supposed to come in and improve the shooting. But who are the shooters that you're looking at for the Magic in the range that we're talking about? Like a great example is, I look at a guy like Liam McNeely, who I think I mean, you're shaking your head too. I'm the same way, but like, everyone's like, this guy's a shooter. And I look at his stats. He's like shooting 31% from three, like
38% from the floor. Defensive concerns, like, come on now.
No, I'm with you there. You don't need to convince me. Like I mentioned, Yegor Demon, like, shot what, 29% from threes, like upper 60s in free throw percentage. And I'm just like screaming, that's a red flag if I've ever seen one, to stay away from someone like him, because he doesn't fill those needs. But then you go in and look at like Jace Richardson, who is a scorer, is a creator, but is on the small side, measured at what, 6 feet, I think 6 feet, 2.25 at the combine. That's like not the typical place the Magic go to. Magic fans love Walter Clayton, but he's not the typical thing the Magic go for either. Where do the Magic go for shooting in this draft?
I actually like the Jace Richardson pick. I'm kind of torn on Jace. I was even torn on him before the measurements, because I'm like, is he a 1? Is he a 2? Yeah. The way they played him at Michigan State, sometimes he played the 3. Actually had this interesting conversation with someone very close to him. I'll just say it like that. And I presented the question, and they were like, well, if he would have played the point at Michigan, then it probably would have been better for him, but it would not have maximized some of the other guys on the team. So he had to play off the ball. And they were, basically saying that he could play anywhere. He could play on the ball. He could play off the ball. But he plays in shoes. The game is played in shoes. The game is not played barefoot. So who cares if he measured 6 foot? With that being said, I actually like Jace Richardson in Orlando, because he doesn't have to be your primary ball handler or decision maker. You can play him in a lineup with Anthony Black and have him guard the smaller point guard and Black defend the bigger 2. Maybe you can play him with Suggs, but he's smart. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He shoots the ball, very efficient at the rim. Like, I think statistically, he's like the best finisher in this class at the rim, despite being, well, I don't want to say despite not being an elite athlete. He tested very well athletically, but his game is not based off of athleticism. But his floater is automatic once he gets into the paint. And I think Orlando kind of needs that complimentary guy that can knock down open shots, attack a closeout, make a mid-range pull-up jumper, get into the paint, knock down a floater, solid connective passer. I think Orlando's a really good fit. The question is, which pick do you take him at? Do you assume he's not going to be available at 25, and do you take him at 16? But he's the guy that I think, like, if there's a player that was tailor-made to fit next to Banchero and Wagner, I think it's Jace Richardson.
Yeah, and I like that's something that really attracts me about him too, because, like, my opinion, the Magic probably need creation and more guys who can attack off the dribble as much as they need outside shooting. Just getting some shooters will help with spacing, but right now it's the last 2 playoffs. I've said Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are banging their head against a wall because they're the only ones that can attack off the dribble. And look, they put some cracks in that wall, whether it was the Cavs last year or the Celtics this season, but they're not breaking through that wall if they don't have almost an Andrew Nembhard type, like another like kind of secondary creator who could even step up in his role. And that's, I think, why like Richardson's really good. Like Walter Clayton, there's obviously an attraction to Walter Clayton here in Florida. A lot of Magic fans see him plenty as Gator fans too. He won the national championship as well. I agree with you. I think Richardson might be a more talented, version. He finishes at the rim a little bit better, but they're very much of the same cloth. Like, what are your thoughts on Clayton's fit with the Magic? Because I know Magic fans will yell at me if I don't ask that specifically.
Yeah, I think Clayton is it's weird to say, and hopefully people understand this. I think Clayton is more of a bucket getter than a shooter. He can shoot. He's clutch. He makes big shots, but I think he's like a rhythm guy where he's going to need some rhythm. I don't know if he's going to be the best as just like a guy that just kind of stands around and catch and shoot guy. And with Richardson, that's kind of like the role that he played at Michigan State. I think now if you brought him in for a workout and had him go against each other, I think Clayton's going to get the best of him because he's older, more polished, more mature. But I just think as far as just like being the connective guy that is going to be efficient off the catch, that can be effective on a very low volume of attempts, I think that is Richardson.
Yeah, definitely an interesting dichotomy there. We're gonna hit our break here in a minute, but I want to coming out of this break, I want to talk a little bit about some of the bigs and how they play into maybe some of the Magic's trade plans and what the Magic might be giving up in a trade. We'll talk about your Rasheer Flemings, maybe your Nick Cliffords, Thomas Sorber, perhaps, and other places the Magic can fill to boost their lineup here in the draft. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you use Monarch Money, you begin to realize how much you are spending in places you should not be spending them, or how to rein in that spending because you see it in plain daylight, in plain paper or plain computer screen, whatever it is, all on one screen. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. That's what it's all about. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever because you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page, all in one app without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Once again, this is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, joined by Rafael Barlow of NBA Big Board. As we go through kind of the Magic's thought process here, entering the NBA draft, we obviously still got 2.5 weeks. We're coming up on it very, very quickly. The draft's going to be here before we know it. And the Magic are interesting players in this year's draft. They have 2 first-round picks, 16 and 25. There's some reporting they may be looking to trade up. I'd be curious who they might want to target there. Maybe we'll address that at the end. But obviously, a lot of the theme of what we're talking about on this show is how the Magic are beginning to kind of move into a new phase of their rebuild where they're focused on being the best team they can be in the short term and focused on getting out of the first round and kind of advancing beyond where they have and growing as a team. A big piece of that is the trade market, obviously. And look, I'm not here to ask you about trades. I think my listeners may know who the Magic are hunting. They'll be shopping, I think, one of these picks in the trade market. But I always say this: to get something good, you've got to give up something good. And one thing that I've been thinking about is how the Magic can use this draft to kind of supplement that trade. If they're going to trade a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in their big deal, they'll probably bring in another 2 guard. If they're going to shop around a Goga Batadze or Jonathan Isaac or Cole Anthony, someone off their bench, they can use that pick to pick a Jace Richardson or Walter Clayton to supplement what they're losing in Cole Anthony. The Jonathan Isaac piece, I think, is the most interesting because when healthy, he is still an elite defender. His offense may be gone. And one thing that I find very interesting about this draft class is there are a lot of those kind of rangy wings, not like Jonathan Isaac because he's kind of an elite level, but someone like a Rasheer Fleming reminds me a lot of like a cheaper version of Jonathan Isaac. What are your thoughts on Fleming, or what are your thoughts on this idea of the Magic finding players who can kind of supplement what they're giving up in these trades to improve the roster, coming off the bench or playing in a smaller role for this team?
I like Rasheer Fleming a lot. He's a guy that I was high on coming into the year. And when I used to watch his film prior to this season, I'd always say, like, man, he's too talented to average 10 points per game. I thought the numbers and the talent weren't on the same page. But what I like about him is that when he was in high school, he was the third best player on his high school team. DJ Wagner and Aaron Bradshaw were like McDonald's All-Americans, projected first-round picks coming out of Camden High. And Fleming is a guy that just got better and better and better and better. And this was the first year I felt like the talent and the production were on the same page. So I think he adds a lot of value as a guy that can knock down shots. He shot 39% from three. If you look at the stocks numbers, it was probably around 3 per game, something like that. So when you think about a guy that can play as like a lob threat in a sense, but also knock down open shots and protect the rim and get steals and switch. I mean, I think that's worthy of a lottery pick. If he falls to like 16, I think that's a win. I have him going inside the lottery, but I think he's a good complementary player that may not be the cleanest fit in Orlando, because sometimes if you're picked that high, you want to at least think like, all right, there's a chance for me to be the starter in a couple of years. and with Orlando, I don't think that's
Powell
the
and
case.
Franz are going to hold down those forward spots for a little while.
Yeah, so you're like, all right, maybe the 5. Can I play the 5? But I actually do believe that he can sneak some minutes in as a small ball 5 because he can space the floor.
Yeah, and it's really interesting with him. Like, he's gotten better each year. Like the 3-point shot, I don't like us looking at his numbers, was not there his first 2 years, and this year felt like a breakthrough for him. He gets you the stocks. He gets you kind of the rim protection. He's 6'9". He's a little bit on the small. He's obviously a small ball 5, but he's a big body. Like he is tough to move, and he plays above the rim, which I think is something the Magic don't have a lot from their bigs. Where, I've seen a lot of people talk about Asa Newell. He's a little bit more of a prospect. Where does he fit into this draft?
I don't know if it's like a good fit for Orlando. Like, my questions or concerns with Newell is like, one, I think he's stuck between a 4 and a 5. I don't think he's big enough or strong enough to play the 5, but I don't know if he's skilled enough at this point right now to where you can say he's a 4. He does show flashes of it, but when you look at 4s in today's NBA, they're really like 3s. You know what I mean? So I don't think he has 3 skill to be the 4, but he's a guy that has a defined role. It's like your energetic lob threat, rim runner, easy to kind of plug and play. My concerns with him is, despite being like this bouncy pogo stick athlete, does not like rebound exceptionally well, especially on the defensive end. Now, the offensive glass, he's going off to the offensive glass like there's money coming off the boards. But on the defensive end, he's not as engaged. And then he's not like the shot blocker, rim protector you would think, the way he gets off the ground so fast. So that would be my concern for him. But if he could end up being a floor spacer, like he's shown some flashes of it. And I'm sure Orlando fans, if they paid attention to those Montverde teams, could have like 3 or 4 first-round picks. He was a sneaky good passer, and we didn't really get a chance to see all of that at Georgia. But I just think for him, it's all about the shot. We know what he can be as far as like just being that energetic dunker spot finisher. But if he can knock down open shots and add a little bit of a face-up game, then I think he becomes really valuable.
The Magic, obviously, I think a lot of us are focused with the Magic on the trade to get a veteran. Anthony Simons called Sexton like using 16 or using 25 to kind of bring in a veteran player. There was at least some reporting. I think Jake Fisher noted in the Steinline Substack that the Magic with 16 and 25 are considering moving up in the draft. I don't know exactly who they would target. I have some ideas, but just based on your board or how you're seeing this draft shake out, if the Magic were really in on a player to move up in the draft, who would that player be?
If it were me, I think some of the options would be like a Con Kneppel or Trey Johnson. These are 2 guys that were lights out shooters, different types of shooters. Kneppel was able to benefit from playing with Cooper Flagg, and he shot 41% from 3, but he's a good connective passer. And Trey Johnson, I think you got to get into that top 5 range. Trey Johnson, and I'm a little biased. I've been watching him since he was in 10th grade, but he led the SEC in scoring. He shot 39% from three without anybody really setting him up for those looks. It was a heavy volume of contested threes on a good volumes, like 6 attempts per game. So I think Johnson is the type of shooter that could really open things up for Orlando. He's familiar with Anthony Black. They both grew up in the Dallas area. So that would be something that I could see. But if they're targeting shooting and they're looking to move up, to me, those are the two best options as far as like dead eye shooters. But then there's Cedric Coward. Again, shot the ball extremely well over his career. Yeah, I mean, those would be the guys that make the most sense if they're looking for shooting.
Yeah, and I'll note you didn't mention Kasper Yakushonis, who kind of like Liam McNeely has this reputation as a shooter, but doesn't have the numbers necessarily to back that up. Yep. Kasper can play a little point guard. He's like a guard tweener, which I think is, but not like for size, just like positionally. You just don't know what his role would be. I wouldn't be surprised if he's who the Magic are thinking.
I have him mocked there. I actually have him mocked, and just my personal mock about what I would do. And he was like the guy that fell out of the lottery because I had some upside swings. And then even though it may not be the cleanest fit, it's like, all right, he's too good to pass up if he's available at 16. But the shooting is, I think he can shoot with his feet set. I think for him, the inefficiency relied on the fact that he just became real predictable. You knew that he was going to shoot a step back jumper. And I think that impacted his efficiency.
Yeah. And that's fair. And I think that's, again, like I think the Magic need, I always say this, the Magic need guys who can do more than one thing. They have a lot of guys that do one thing when all the conditions are right. They do that thing really, really well. But really, Paolo and Franz are the only ones that do multiple things. And they, especially offensively, they need guys who can do multiple things on offense. I'm a big Knuppel fan. I was really impressed, not only how he played off of someone like Cooper Flagg, but when Cooper went down, he stepped up and carried Duke in pressure games. Like, I know you don't want to put too much emphasis on tournament games, but those are pressure games. Something is on the line, and to play well on that stage, neutral site, everyone kind of going for it. I think that does say something. And I think Knuppel is a little bit underrated in this draft, at least to my eye. You would know more than me. So there's obviously a lot more to get to. We didn't talk about really any of the foreign guys like Nolan Traore, like Asang, like if I'm pronouncing that correctly. There are a lot of, honestly, I think for the Magic and where they're drafting, there are a lot of interesting prospects. I don't know if they're good prospects, but there are a lot of interesting prospects. And the best place to learn about all of them for the next 3 weeks is over at Locked On NBA Big Board. Rafael, I want to thank you for coming on and kind of breaking down the Magic side of things. For my listeners on Locked On Magic, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at NBABigBoard.com. That is my newsletter. And like I mentioned, I kind of gave away my Orlando Magic picks. I had them going with Yakushonis in my latest mock, and then I had them going with Jace Richardson. A little bit of redundancy there, but I don't think they're going to keep both of their picks.
I don't think so either.
So
I think one of them is gone.
Yep, I agree. So then I'm on the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. So if you listen to the Locked On Network, you know it's 5 days a week, or at least 20 episodes a month. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Yep. And Rafael is the best resource. I want to thank you for coming on with me, helping me with my draft prep, helping Magic fans get a really good introduction to what's on the table for them in this draft class. And hopefully everyone understands Magic are a real interesting team this offseason. They're gonna do something. I don't know what it is, but they'll do something this offseason. Rafael, thank you again as always, man.
No problem. Thank you.